12 most powerful new weapons in the Elden Ring DLC. Let's go. Bonk your enemies from range with the smithscript greathammer, a weapon that shows you what happens when you cast yeets. This is a weapon that scales primarily with strength, dex, intelligence, and faith, and is a great mix of both melee and ranged. And you can pick this up in Telu's Ruined Forge, which is located here on the map. So how do we boost the power here? Well, talisman wise, we of course want the smithing talisman. This enhances weapon throwing attacks by 10%. We also want the arrow's reach talisman for better range, the axe talisman to increase charge attack damage by 10%. Our thrown attack is of course a charge attack, and the raw medallion to boost the effect of the braggart's roar, which we have as our skill. So the general strategy is to roar like a total braggart, hold down RT, start winding up, and unleash. Now the range on this thing exceeds most other smithscript weapons, especially with the arrow reach talisman. You can actually hit enemies from outside their detection range and get the damage bonus for that, making this a stealth sledgehammer. If enemies are clustered together, you can also take out multiple of them in one go with a single throw. As well as that, the hit to your stamina is barely anything. The description for this weapon reads, greathammer engraved with a smithscript, a throwing weapon created through the smithing arts. Execute a strong attack or a dashing strong attack to spin and fling the greathammer. It's been called a demonic pork scratching. This is the putrescence cleaver. And by the way guys, if you are enjoying the video, make sure to hit that like button and click subscribe for more Elden Ring vids like this one. Now this is probably one of the strangest weapons in the game, and one that makes your back hurt just by looking at it. But it almost needs a category all on its own because it doesn't really handle like anything else. According to the description, this is a weapon wielded by the putrescent knight, a great cleaver of hardened putrescence affixed to an arch fashioned from human bones. Gains power from the wielder's arcane attributes. The cleaver scales primarily with strength, dex, and arcane. The Ash of War on this weapon is great at stun locking opponents, and if you're facing a humanoid opponent who loves rolling away, you can spam this and catch them. I recommend using the Axe Talisman on this and just spamming the Ash of War, and what's good is you can free aim this in any direction and start the Ash while facing away from your opponent, then turn in midair to hit them off guard. Most enemies won't have the poise to put up with the constant attacks from this, the putrescence cleaver. Become a deadly poisonous freak with the deadly poison perfume bottle. A perfume bottle so deadly you can actually poison yourself. It's an acquired taste. The weapon can be bought from Moore at the main gate cross site of grace. This is east on the map, and it costs just 6,000 runes. Unlike the regular perfume bottles you can get, the deadly perfume bottle is a weapon you can equip in either hand. The name Deadly Poison refers to the speed at which you trigger the poison, so it does 2 times damage but lasts half as long as regular poison. It is quite difficult to use, I'm not going to lie. As you can see, I get hit a bunch of times, but you can't say it's not fun running around like a human crop duster. Like all weapons, you can upgrade this perfume bottle with smithing stones and boost its power with talismans, of which these are the ones I recommend to make you more poisonous than ever. The Shard of Alexander for a better special attack, Kindred of Rot to raise damage when poison is active, Rotten Wing Sword Insignia for better successive attacks, and Blue Dancer Talisman, which increases the damage the less you weigh. And since the perfume bottle is a very light weapon and we're wearing the ugly mushroom hat which also boosts poison, that means we are very poisonous indeed. Use the Cure Poison incantation to remove the poison from yourself when you use the Ash of War. You can also get the Poison Hand weapon and equip that in your offhand for a 7% damage buff when poison is active. You can pick that one up off a corpse at the Bellarat Tower settlement. Now you're not going to rush through a boss or a hard enemy with this perfume bottle alone, but if you equip it in one hand and pair it with another weapon to do damage, the deadly perfume bottle is great to have as a support. Next up, we have the devastating bone bow. And here's why the bone bow is very good. Undead spirits literally guide your arrows to their target. And who can't get on board with that? The bone bow is a light bow, again brand new in Shadow of the Erdtree, and it scales primarily with strength, dex, and comes with the following description. A crude short bow fashioned from sickly bone, a medium for spirit calling and a product of the ancient hexing art of the tower. The skill on this is called Rancor Shot, and as you can see, the arrows automatically seek out their targets. Equipping the Alexander Shard talisman will boost the damage of the homing arrows, and put on the 2 arrow talismans for increased damage and range as well. But arrows aren't just for damage. Try inflicting status effects by using bleed or poison arrows. St. Trina arrows are also very nice on this thing. And if you want to fire non-stop, try the Blessed Blue Dew talisman to keep that FP up. The bone bow is how I'm taking down the dragons in this DLC from safety. No more getting directly underneath their legs and whacking away, just fire from extreme distances and snipe them from existence. Rancor Shot is a bit like the Barrage Ash of War, but with a much smaller penalty on damage, and the arrows track their targets. Best bow in the game in my opinion. Become a character from Tekken with Dane's footwork. This is a hand-to-hand art in Elden Ring, so it's not actually a weapon at all, although it is still categorized as one, and you can upgrade it. How do you upgrade your own limbs? It doesn't make sense, but let's just go with it. Dane's footwork scales primarily with strength and dex, and there are some nice moves in this moveset. Backstep followed by R1 has a unique spin kick followed by a backhand fist, while the running R2 is a drop kick when one-handed. The description says that this is a martial art focusing on kicking techniques. This kick-based martial art is unique to Dane, a dryleaf and sworn ally of Leda. He acquired these skills by training with the aid of a waterfall, letting the water beat his body and throwing himself into its basin. The Shattered Stone Talisman increases the damage of this weapon by 10%, and make sure to get the Claw Talisman on this thing as that boosts jump attacks. The Divine Bird Warrior Greaves also end up giving this 15% more damage, and it results in you kind of looking like the Pokemon Blaziken. At plus 25, this weapon gets a B scaling in Keen and an A scaling in Heavy. Plus, if you wield Dane's footwork in your offhand, you still get to use your arsenal of kicks, even if you're holding a weapon in your other hand, so you don't even need to double hand it. I love how you can elegantly fly through the air with this weapon, regardless of how heavy your armor is. Nothing makes sense in this game. Enjoy 80 inches of the Impaler with this legendary spear. The Spear of the Impaler has one of the coolest weapon arts in the game, in my opinion. It consists of not 1, but 3 separate attacks and ends with a bunch of spikes coming out of the ground. Trust me, if you finish a boss off with this move, Mesmer's Assault, you will feel like a rune lord. You get this weapon by defeating the boss Mesmer in the Specimen Storehouse. And I love that this gives you the exact same combo as Mesmer. Like, comparatively, most boss weapons will give you a sort of watered down move from the boss that you get it from. But with this one, you can replicate all of the twirly stuff Mesmer hit you with, but do it on, say, a dog. The Spear of the Impaler is in the Great Spear category and scales primarily with strength, dex, and faith. As per the description, this has a warped blade in the shape of an undulating flame. Remade by forging arts of the realm of shadow, this weapon can be thrown by executing a strong attack, dashing strong attack, or mounted strong attack. Charge the attack to produce flame on impact. Talisman wise, we want the Shard of Alexander and the Rotten Winged Sword Insignia, and both the two-handed talisman and the smithing talisman boost your two-handed charged attack. Try casting Flame Grant Me Strength beforehand to boost the damage further. Also, craft a bunch of oil pots because throwing these at enemies before hitting them adds a massive 50% to the next fire attack. I also recommend the Winged Serpent Helm as this also buffs the Ash of War. Onto Rellana's twin blades, a light greatsword added in Shadow of the Erdtree. And this is basically two swords in one. When you charge this up, you can unleash fire attacks on the right trigger and moon attacks on the right bumper. If you team up with a mimic tear of yourself, you can even do both at the same time. This is pretty similar to the Sword of Night and Flame, so it scales primarily with strength, dex, intelligence, and faith, and is a great weapon for intelligent faith builds. As the description for this one goes, this is a carrion sword embedded with blue glintstone. Weapon of Rellana, the twin moon knights, it's two swords as a single armament. One is infused with fire and the other has the power of the moon. When two-handing, you'll carry the fire sword in the left hand and the moon sword in the right. The Ash of War is called Moon and Fire stance, and as I say, this sees you assume a ready stance and imbue your sword with magic. Follow this up with a normal attack to cast glintstone light waves, or a strong attack to perform a spinning fire attack. You can also keep attacking for follow-ups, and it just looks very, very cool. I use the twin blade talisman on this, which adds an increase to R1 finishers. Add on the Alexander shard for more weapon skill damage, and you will be laughing. This is not a great PvP weapon, as it does not do that much poise damage, eats quite a lot of stamina, and requires quite a lot of investment in 4 different stats to shine in the way that you want it. But if you're just going through the story, this is a very flash and very stylish weapon. Attack and defense simultaneously with the dueling shield. With this, you can power through attacks and take only chip damage while beating your foes to a pulp. This skill is called Shield Strike, and it lets you just keep hitting your target over and over. The charge attacks are amazing, and you can put loads of Ashes of War on this thing, and if that wasn't enough, it can be buffed. The dueling shield scales primarily with strength and dex. As per the description, this is a combined weapon and shield, an armament once used in ritual combat performed to honour the Erdtree, a custom that had somehow remained within the realm of. Now, this weapon is so good, I almost feel bad, especially when buffed with weapon grease to stack bleed or frost, or indeed fire. As for talismans, use the stamina talismans to keep that stamina up and just spam L1 and R1 attacks. Very cheesy, but very satisfying. The specific talismans you want are, in my opinion, the spear talisman, great shield talisman, two-handed sword talisman, and two-headed turtle talisman. The Viridian hidden tear is great for this because it eliminates all stamina consumption. Find this from the furnace golem roaming around Elak River. Ash of War wise, I like the barricade shield standard infusion, but thrusting ashes like the blood tax and giant hunt are also good. Combine the dueling shield with the deflecting tear and try and do guard counters for insane stagger damage. And if you love smashing people's poise to pieces, whack Cragblade on it. The Fire Knight's Greatsword is a colossal sword and one of the best in the game. It's got a lightning fast moveset similar to a normal greatsword, but with extra poise breaking ability and a higher range similar to a colossal sword. The Fire Knight's Greatsword scales primarily with strength, dex, and faith, and excels if you have a fire build. The description says that this is a long, slender blade that undulates like fire, blessed with a flame incantation. Further flame imbuement will amplify the effect and greatly increase the power. You will get a massive damage boost from wearing the Fire Knight set, and also use the Fire Scorpion charm to ramp up that fire damage. Now, this is a rare drop from Fire Knights who can be found in the storehouse. The best way to farm this is this way. So go to the storeroom first floor Grace and whack on a silver scarab talisman. Then consume a silver horn tender and a silver pickled falfoot, and this will boost your item discovery. Now turn around, take the elevator down, and you will run into a single Fire Knight. Farm your weapon off this dude. If it doesn't drop, ride the elevator back up and rest at the site of grace to make them respawn. If you fast travel, the effects of your items will end, but if you rest at the site of grace without fast traveling, the item's effects will continue. This is the euporia, potentially the most anime weapon you could possibly use. It's a twin blade and it scales primarily with strength, dex, and faith. The weapon's name comes from ancient Greek and it means abundance, which is exactly what you will get when you use the weapon skill because it is a lot. The description reads, a twin blade symbolizing abundance, the secret treasure of the tower. Though the blades, fashioned from golden shoots, are largely wilted and darkened, their luster can be restored by dealing damage to foes. However, damage dealt to those who live in death will have no such effect. The euporia might be the hardest to find weapon in the game as well, but if you do want this for yourself, head here. We are talking about Devonia's hammer now, another super powerful weapon in Shadow of the Erdtree. Devonia's hammer scales primarily with strength, dex, and faith, and is a good weapon if you're rocking a strength faith build. The weapon art is amazing, and there's massive hyper armor during the skill use, which in other words means you can't be rocked. The description says that this is a great hammer wielded by Devonia, longest serving of the Crucible Knights. Weapon forged of primordial gold, marked by its reddish hue and inhabited by ancient holiness. A torrent of life is engraved upon the striking face. If you want Devonia's hammer for yourself, head to the Viaduct Tower site of grace and follow this route to the location. Grease up this weapon with fire and poke people from behind a big old shield with the sword lance. The sword lance is a heavy thrusting sword in Elden Ring and it hits like a truck. It's a rare remembrance weapon that's infusible, so you can apply grease to it and poke away. Also, it seems to be the only weapon that's different between console and PC. Players are reporting that on PS5 this has an S scaling at level 25 with a heavy affinity, but on PC it's an A scaling. Not a huge disparity, but a weird one because I don't think this happens with any other weapon. So if you've got access to both versions, check it out and let me know if that's the case. Now, some players recommend putting the Cragblade Ash of War on this, using the deflecting hard tier and equipping the Spear Talisman to increase thrusting weapon counterattack damage by 15%. But I've never been great at counterattack, so I just hide behind my big shield and just keep poking. This sword lance is one of the possible rewards when trading Remembrance of the Wild Boar Rider boss with Enya at the Round Table Hold. According to the description, it's a weapon once wielded by Commander Gaius, a combination of greatsword and lance. Weighty and capable of being brought to bear with great force, this armament shows its true potential when astride a mount. Gaius himself was never without his boar. So those were, in my opinion, the 12 best, most deadly weapons in Elden Ring. You can find them all in the Shadow of the Erdtree DLC right now. But if I haven't covered one of your favourite weapons from the DLC, let me know down down in the comments what weapon you are going with. Thanks so much for watching. If you like the video, leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more Elden Ring guides.